talk publishing for a second?
We can talk about whatever you want.
So, guitar magazines, the the history of guitar magazines is really something, isn't it? Are you familiar? Did you love guitar magazines and then kind of see like a dip in guitar magazines, and then you were like, "Hey, there's an opportunity here"? Because I grew up in a shop that had all the old Frets magazines, and then when that Frets kind of went away, and then acoustic guitar was kind of cracking for a minute, but there was never anything really I felt that kind of came close to what the old Frets magazines did. Were you into those at all?
Yeah, so I discovered frets way after they were originally published.
Yeah.
I started this magazine. I still feel like I'm the new kid on the block, but it's been almost 18 years.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, that's not new, that's ancient. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I basically got the guitar bug. I'm not a luthier, but I got the guitar bug and the collecting bug and really couldn't find a magazine that I bonded with. And then I would go to the newsstand and see all these gorgeous magazines for surfing and motorcycles and you name it that were, I'm like, why doesn't the guitar universe have this? Like, guitars are beautiful. At that time, guitar magazines were probably at their low point in terms of
Mhm.
design and editorial. They were either featuring classic rock bands or, I mean, acoustic guitar has been focusing on acoustic music to a great degree and doing a good job with that. But I didn't really find anything I bonded with. And so the Fretboard Journal was really just the offshoot of like, could I make a magazine as beautiful as possible and cover musicians that I actually loved and interview these craftspeople that weren't getting interviewed? And here we are.
Yeah. One of the things that strikes me about your magazine too is like some of the other magazines that I don't want to like besmirch any other magazines, but it does seem like their content to advertising ratio goes like pretty through the roof on advertising. And it always seemed like did you make a conscious effort to kind of like keep it more magazine and less advertising, or is
Yeah,
it?
I mean, that was the whole pitch from the beginning, was that we were going to be largely reader supported, and we have been. And we've weathered several advertising storms where advertisers have retracted or come back and all that stuff. I hate selling ads. Like, I would much rather talk to content creators and storytellers and luthiers and interview all my heroes than
Yeah.
try to convince any company to buy an ad. The ads hopefully sell themselves because people get that this is kind of a unique community. But yeah, I mean, most magazines in the traditional sense, not even just guitar related, have to feature, whether it's cars or travel stories or whatever they're trying to sell ads against, they have to feature sort of the more press releasey gear roundup stuff. And I don't want to do any of that. And
Yeah.
honestly, there are other outlets that do it better than I could. So I'd rather focus on long form interviews with quirky and interesting people that maybe aren't getting coverage elsewhere, and guitar makers and musicians doing interesting things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not another like acoustic electric Takamine roundup. Like, which one's the best one?
No more how to play like Hendrix. No more,
Oh,
yeah. No more hybrid guitar roundups. No dreadnoughts under $1,000 roundups. Like,
the
those
secret
are
to
all a
Stevie Ray
Google
Vaughan's
search
tone.
away. Yeah, those are all a Google search away if anybody needs that in their life. But I'd rather fill a void that doesn't
Mhm.
cover that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And so like the the publishing model, like it is it's kind of bonkers in general. Like, we hear this from like all over different corners of publishing. Newspapers are on the ropes,
Yeah.
magazines in general are on the ropes. Um, do you feel any of that? Like, do you feel the push to go in, like, we're just going to wrap it up and go digital, or do you think that in perpetuity people are going to want like a nice package and a nice, I'm going to look at this. Is this the last stand for?
I don't think it's the last stand. I think in 10 years, the only magazines that you're going to see, if Barnes and Noble still exists or your local newsstand, will be like the Fretboard Journal. They're going to be
Yeah.
$20 or $15, and they're going to feel more like a book than a magazine. It's been interesting. Print is definitely not dead, and there have been a whole crop of new magazines that are just like us for other things. Like there's this super popular watch website called Houdinki that I think John Mayer is on the board of directors or something of, and they were totally a digital, you know, media outlet, and then they became a web store. They sell high-end watches, and they just started a print magazine that looks just like our magazine and is actually printed at the last printer I used. And so
Wait
for
a
a did
second. Wait a second. How do you
yeah.
feel about that?
Well,
You
no,
feel,
I mean it's just there are a bunch of magazines like this
yeah.
out there, and it's great because it shows the universe like, oh, these can be sustainable, these can be interesting, these can actually come from a digital first mind because they want to create a keepsake. It's kind of like the 180-gram vinyl still flourishing, like LPs flourishing in the age of Spotify. People
Uh-huh.
still want to hold something unique in their hands.
Yeah.
Um, what I hate is like I said, selling ads to some of these bigger companies have ad agencies that they work with, or people who aren't really guitar people, and to them we're just a number. We're like, oh, here's their circulation, here's what their ad rate is. We're not going to do print advertising right now. And so I'm hearing a lot of that from the bigger companies, but then sometimes the heads of those companies who's were luthiers and now have like our CEOs, they love our magazines, so then they push for an ad. Like it's just this crazy. I hate ads.
It it seems hard to do.
It's
People ask me, like occasionally my wife would be like, why don't you build guitars? And I'm like, because at the end of every build, which I'm happy to do, there's selling a guitar, which I'm not
yeah,
happy to do.
yeah. The as some people probably know, we do a whole bunch of podcasts now. We have like 5 or 6 of them. We do
Mhm.
some videos here at the Fretboard Journal, and then we do this event now in Chicago and the magazine. If I didn't have to do the magazine, I'm sure my blood pressure would be cut in half and I'd look 20 years younger. The magazine is like super stressful just because it's a lot of work and it only comes out a few times a year. And if you make a mistake in a magazine, you have to live with it for the rest of your life. You can't
Yeah.
like do an edit and repost the podcast or any of that stuff. It's a lot of work. It's not easy.
What's that? So, how far in advance are you producing issues? I know. So you're doing it's quarterly, right? You're doing
Yeah.
four a year,
Yeah. So we got
and
one that's in design right now that'll come out at the end of, or probably the beginning of September is when people will see it. But, we have to give our writers and our photographers a couple months to do their thing. And then it comes here and we edit it. And that we have, I have one person, two people really that help me line edit and copy edit because that's not my forte, or I'm just too busy. They need a couple weeks. So yeah, I mean, right now, if somebody were to send me a brilliant idea for the next great Fretboard Journal story, we'd be looking at like the end of the year, and we're
okay.
talking in August.
So like, what does that division of labor look like for you? Like, is it all you? Like, are you like laying stuff out on the computer and
I
doing
have a
graphic design and
No, I have a great graphic designer who's actually local, although I never see him like since COVID. It's,
uh,
everybody's just working remote. I have a great graphic designer named Andre who's been with us for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. I have a couple of helpers who come in. The magazine is cyclical. Like if a new issue comes out, I need a bunch of people stuffing envelopes and packing boxes for stores that carry them wholesale and all that stuff. So I have a few helpers that come in from time to time on a part-time basis. I have a copy editor that I work with. And then we rely on a ton of freelancers, photographers, writers. I tend to be a slowpoke when it comes to writing. So as much as I'd love to go interview all these people myself, I have to outsource because otherwise I'd be a huge bottleneck. And then when it comes to podcasts, we have a little bit of podcast production help. But yeah, a lot of those shows, like Michael Bashkin produces his own show, the Luthier and Luthier show. And I produce 2 of the podcasts that we do and host them, the AMP one and the Fretboard Journal one. So it's just cobbled together. But yes, I wear a gazillion hats, which I think you kind of need to do these days to run
what
a,
about
yeah.
so so the people wrangling hat, that I'm interested in. I always wonder, like, how is it when like somebody comes to you and I've got a great idea for a story about a D18, and you're like, well, turns out we've had some stories about D18s. Can you pick something else? Like, is is there like a lot of like interpersonal stuff where you've got to like delicately put we are going to edit your article because this sentence is stupid, and even though you don't like
Uh,
it?
there's a ton of that.
Yeah.
I would say this to anyone listening who wants to pitch any magazine, like actually immerse yourself in the magazine, like subscribe,
Yeah.
get a copy, read it online, because half the pitches we get, I think probably also go to acoustic guitar and premier guitar, and it's clear they've never read the Fretboard Journal and didn't realize that we already covered that person, or that it's not the kind of story we would even run.
Mhm.
For our magazine, it's also one of the great filters is like, are there great photos of this D18 or
Mhm.
whatever? Because a lot of people are like, I want to write a story about this guitar. And then I'm like, are there photos? And sure enough, the guitar's passed hands already, or it's impossible to get photos or whatever. It's like, well, our magazine is very visual. If we don't have great visuals to go with the editorial, I guess I could hire an illustrator, but does
Mhm.
anybody really want to see an illustration of a guitar that's being talked about? Not really. Police sketch artist, I don't know.
Uh,
But yeah, we do. One of the big pitfalls of people writing about their favorite luthier, and I see this a lot, once a month at least, somebody sends us a story or the first page of a story and says, check this out. Everybody thinks that their favorite luthier is the greatest luthier to ever step foot on earth. And so I get rid of all the hyperbole, or ask the writer to, and just say, like, this person's not the greatest. They are great, but we don't.
Everybody's great in their own
Yeah.
way. My
I mean,
mom told me that.
I could make a drinking game out of, like, and then I strum the guitars and the angels say, like all the
Uh,
cliches,
uh,
all the cliches. And I know that it's just hard to describe, like, yeah, this craftsperson and they do great work. And
it's a canon.
yeah,
It's
it's
a
a
real
canon.
canon.
It's a canon. That's a common one. It's surprising how many people spell dreadnought AUGHT. Not
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that would be a killer if the rest of the story was good, but it's sort of like, I don't know where that came from.
One of the things being a repair guy is I get asked all the time, "Oh, this luthier up in so and so, you've heard of him, right?" And I'd be like, "There's a lot of luthiers. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of luthiers." And I'm sure he's great. It's like guitar players back in the day. I'm sure he's your hometown hero, and he's, for your hometown, he's the best there is. And
Yeah.
oh man, yeah, it's tough. It's tough disabusing people of notions like that. But
Yeah, and so many people, and I'm sure I'm the same way, you have blinders on and you're totally unaware of, except for the 5 people in your little circle who fix your guitars or make your favorite guitars or whatever, you're totally unaware of what else is going
what
on.
else is going
So
on?
I have to be like, that person's not the only person making a really great Martin replica right now. And I'm not going to like teach them other guitar makers, but I have had to tell writers, like, this world is a little bigger than you think it is, and you
Yeah,
can't be completely oblivious to that when you write a story.
yeah, that's it's yeah. So you must get a pile of unsolicited, like, that you have basically an open call for this, so you
Oh yeah.
you must get a pile of them. Is there um actually, you want to just like run down the do's and don'ts of submitting a potential article to Jason Verlinde of the Fretboard Journal, or?
Well, we get I mean, if it's a restoration or repair story, we walk that fine line. Like, most of our readers are not luthiers. Most of our
Yeah.
readers are just really passionate guitar people who have some luthier built instruments, or maybe a Collings or a Santa Cruz or a Martin, or a Fender. And so, it should be, if it's a repair or restoration photo essay, like, make it exciting for the general. Sometimes I'll get a pitch with a Dropbox with like 200 photos,
Uh-huh.
every step-by-step thing, like ready for Frank Ford frets.com, or like,
Uh-huh.
and it's like, realistically, like, look at the magazine. We're going to pick the 8 that actually
Three
are
pictures per
amazing.
article. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe eight.
Well, maybe, yeah, we never do just 3, but yeah. And so that's pare it down, show just the best. If it's, you know, if it's an interview, make it interesting, make it a cool conversation with one of your peers or something. Don't just, try to interview some guitar hero. Like, try to figure out a cool situation where maybe 2 luthiers who don't
All right,
even
let me
really
call
know
you
each
back.
other are getting to connect for the first time and spitball. Like, I don't know, like, be creative is basically what it comes down to
Yeah.
for my
Oh,
magazine.
Jeff,
I mean,
Jeff, did you want to jump in?
Oh, no.
Oh.
I was talking to my wife. She's calling me about a problem that we have with a customer.
Okay. Jeff, do you know Jason? You guys know
hey,
each other?
We've never met personally. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I've got 2 phones going on. Okay. No, we've never met personally, but we did exchange an email actually about the very topic that we're talking about right now, writing an article.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Don't use flowery language to describe tone, I think, is what
Don't use
Jason's
flowery
saying.
language. Send me a sample if you can. I'd rather a writer sent me like the first 3 paragraphs of an unfinished story, and then we could kind of gauge whether or not it is a good fit, or maybe I can help coach them if it's their first time writing something, than
Yeah.
sending me a 10-page manuscript that you think is the greatest thing ever, and then I have to break your heart or tell you that it's not a good fit. Like,
So once again, read the magazine before.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. And, even just reading, if you're a super cheapskate, as much as I'd love everyone's support, just go onto our website and see what kind of stuff we cover and what we don't cover. We have a ton of articles for free. We have a ton of podcasts that kind of explain the tone of what we're going after.
By the way, when I describe what we do on the Loose Group, I say we're basically the anti Fretboard Journal, in that nothing against you, but I don't care about the human aspect of it at all. I want the 500 pictures with a description of each picture and the minutia of each movement and of the repair. But
I totally get that, and I love what you're doing, and I'm a supporter of your Luth group, and we just talked about it on the last podcast we did. Yeah, you guys are filled a niche that didn't, I mean, aside from frets.com and a couple of random YouTube videos, like you guys are covering so much, and it's so cool to see in a relatively short time how much this has grown. But yeah,
I didn't mean it to say that we're the anti-Fretboard Journal.
No,
it's just that it's so interesting to hear you say, like, we're looking for a story, we're looking for a connection to the reader, and
now ultimately, for me to do my job properly and hopefully turn the masses onto cooler people and cooler instruments, and that there is more to this universe than what they see at Guitar Center or the magazine rack at 7-Eleven. We have to tell a good story. And sometimes, I mean, this is what we struggle with. Just a side note, like I sometimes struggle with this a little bit with like pedal coverage. Like, pedals are huge right now. A lot of pedal makers are making money hand over fist, but it's not that compelling to talk about how a pedal gets made versus an acoustic or an electric guitar. Even talking to an amp maker is a little bit more challenging, just because it's a little more nuts and bolts.
It is. And it's also like, I wonder if it's like, I wonder how like music review works in the age of Spotify, where it's like, do you want to know about this song? Listen to it.
I know. Well,
make an opinion. Do you want to know how this pedal sounds? Listen to it.
I don't do concert reviews anymore, but I used to do like old school music journalism when like alt weeklies existed and stuff. And now, by the time, if I were to review a show, by the time I would get in my car and get home, half the show would be uploaded to YouTube by somebody. So it's like, I could give you my opinion about it, or you could just go see what James Taylor sounded like at the winery last Thursday. Like, it's the video's there.
It's there.
Yeah.
And I think probably with pedals, it's a little bit different though, because getting in the same room as the pedal is maybe a little bit challenging, and maybe that, I don't know.
Although describing pedals you know, in text form is super. I mean, you can only say, you can say delay, you can say looper, you can say it sounds like a video game from the 80s, but there's a reason YouTube is so popular for video demos of things.
Yeah, I think do you have any do you I guess I should ask you, like, are there any stories that are elusive? Like, are there stories that you've asked to be covered and then you don't, maybe you like put off covering them because maybe they're difficult to cover or something, and you're waiting for the right person, and maybe somebody turns something in and you're like, I think we could do better than that? Or is there something that you've been holding off on because you're waiting for the right combination of author and
That's a
stuff
good
to go?
question. I don't have anything like in the back burner where I'm waiting for some New Yorker writer who's going to dash in and save the day and do it right. I don't have that. You know, there are a couple of, you know, white whales in terms of like music interviews that would be, you know, who wouldn't want to interview Neil Young? Like, it'd be incredible. You know, Bob Dylan still roams this earth somewhere. He's probably having coffee as we chat on this Zoom call. You know, there are folks like that where if that ever were to land in my lap, I would be really, really excited about. But yeah, I mean, sometimes the best stories that I love the most are totally out of left field, even for me. And it's like, wow, I didn't see that one coming at all. And I'm so glad it exists. Yeah.
Cool. Should we look at the actually, anybody have any questions for Jason before we start talking about Summit? We got a couple of your authors on here.
Jason, I'm your New York writer. I'll come in and I'll save the day.
Right after he gets done
Thank
with his fruit compote.
No scurvy for Fretboard Journal writers.
The great profile of you having a bit of pineapple.
I know.
I know. My side gig is a pirate, so you know I'm trying to get.
Let's see here. Okay, so anybody else? Any other questions? Bohannon, you look like you're up and ready for a question.
Yeah, if my face gets bigger, I've got a question. Hi, Jason. Thanks for doing. So Instagram and YouTube are really dominated, especially with views or indicated by views, electric guitars. Do you find that your readership sways more to the electric guitar side, and generally that's just way more popular?
That's a good question.
I mean, honestly, I think most people think of us as an acoustic guitar magazine, and we get that a lot. You know, mainly because, you know, aside from acoustic guitar, it's pretty rare for a guitar magazine to have an acoustic on the cover, and half of our covers probably have someone holding an acoustic guitar or an acoustic guitar. I've always tried to make it kind of 50-50 in terms of, you know, our coverage, and occasionally we cover the odd mandolin story or something that's not even guitar related, but we don't do a whole lot of that. But yeah, I mean, YouTube and Instagram are definitely interesting. We're going to focus a little more on YouTube going forward just because it's where the eyeballs are. But I also, you know, I think about my own media consumption, and there's a lot of podcasts that are just on YouTube. It's like two guys with two cameras on them. And I'm like, I listen to my podcast when I'm stuck in the car. Like, I don't need to stare at these two guys for 60 minutes while they riff on whatever. So I'm trying to kind of figure out our strategy, which is funny because it's just me like trying to figure out where I'm going to go next month, basically. But I'm always thinking about that stuff. And, you know, and the Instagram thing is hard too. Like that algorithm, like sometimes you think you're going to post something that's just going to go viral, and the algorithm has decided no one should see this post ever. And then sometimes you post something random and weird and it takes off, you know, and so I'm a little burned out on Instagram personally, just because I'm like, I can't figure this out, and I don't have enough time or energy to try to figure it out. But yeah, to answer your question, I'd say we're split down the middle. You know, I always like in the earliest days of the Fretboard Journal, our pitch was always like, well, like our magazine should be like for the people who own like a Collings or want to own a Collings. And now Collings makes electrics alongside acoustics, and it's kind of easier to even make that pitch than it used to be. Of just like, yeah, if you like know that brand or own one or two of those, like you probably the perfect Fretboard Journal reader. Like you like nice things. You're probably, playing a certain kind of music and knowledgeable about this universe to a certain degree. And yeah, that's kind of how I think.
Have you ever had to turn an advertiser away because they weren't a good fit for the magazine and you just didn't want something?
Yeah. I mean,
funky,
there's
like-
been a couple of funky ads that just did not make any sense at all.
Yeah.
They were just ugly, and I didn't want to stare at them for the rest of my life because most people don't throw these magazines away. And then
Yeah.
there's been a couple of scrappy, smaller advertisers people interested in advertising, and they'll send the ad and the URL, and then I'll go and take the time to like see where this ad would send people if people actually bothered to type in the URL, and like their website's not done, or they need to do 10 things before they even think about booking an ad in any magazine, let alone mine. And I've tried to, I try to coach people once in a while, like, look, I don't want you to blow your entire ad budget on these 2 ads when you could be doing all this free stuff that actually might move the needle way before you think about print advertising.
Yeah.
That's a whole universe unto itself. Like I think I gave a talk at one of the Vancouver guitar shows about that, of just like marketing, because a lot of luthiers, they're getting better. Everyone's getting better, but a lot of luthiers don't do a great job telling their story on their own. And then, if you think that an ad in a magazine is going to save the day, it's probably not. It can be a great compliment to all the other stuff you're doing, and it's a great way to make an impression to our readership, but you
'Cause
kind
even-
of have
I
your
mean,
ducks in a row.
A lot of those guys are pretty sweaty, like every luthier guitar builder, like they're really dreaming of this thing.
Yeah.
And, like they think, I can imagine, like if they would think that they got their ad in the back of Fretboard Journal, boys, that would be just the answer to all their financial prayers.
No, it might answer some of my prayers if all of them came at once. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's not. Yeah. I mean, I took our most recent issue and the issue after this next one. I have an ad from a shoe company, Bed Stew Shoes. This isn't a plug for them, but they make kind of like Red Wing kind of, boots. And they were interested, their CEO is like a Fretboard Journal reader and a big guitar collector. And I'm like, yeah, make an ad that looks kind of music-y. Why not? Let's give it a try. I'd take a
Yeah.
beer ad if it made sense.
Mhm.
If it was someone from our extended community. So it's been interesting that there's been like little inroads like that, people approaching me to see about marketing and advertising help. But yeah, I mean, if you're a guitar maker, I don't personally care if like your Facebook page hasn't been updated in a while or is only updated once a week, but have a website that shows your current models, have some photography that looks like it's from this decade. Don't look like it's a coming soon ad or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So you don't want the back pages of Fretboard Journal just to be nothing but asymmetrical rosettes, right? Like just like a pile of asymmetrical rosettes.
A lot of advertisers do reach out and they're like, what should I do or what shouldn't I do? And you do kind of need to curb some of those once in a while.
Yeah.
Like the best ads in general, like even those vintage Volkswagen ads that people like from the 70s that people worship, like they got to be distinctive. They can't just look like, and in the guitar universe, there are a lot of like rosette picks and headstock picks.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, it is a guitar. You got to take a picture of it. There's a couple spots where it looks more interesting than others. And,
Yeah.
Okay.
Why no Dean ads? Dean has not reached out, believe it or not. They are more than welcome to reach out to me. I'm very easy to get a
You
hold of.
should just for fun, like maybe in your April issue, slide like one of those old Hoochie Mama, like electric guitar ads in there. I just slide it in just for fun.
We don't need to see those anymore.
Okay, Fretboard Summit. Let's
Yeah.
talk about this for a minute.
Okay.
I gotta get this.
My very dashed off PowerPoint.
Let's see here. Yep. Okay.
Yep. It works.
Oh, what's going on here?
What's the
page up.
Fretboard Summit, or what's the PowerPoint?
Oh, my button pushing here. It seems
Oh
like
yeah,
it-
just go
okay.
down whenever you need to.
Okay. So this
Yeah.
is the Chicago, August 24th to 28th.
26.
26.
It's basically right after the big Gallup Northwood seminar. And
Mhm.
so Brian reached out and we kind of talked about that and thought that it might make some people's lives slightly easier if they can kind of stay in the Midwest for the entire week. And
Mhm.
and I think a bunch of people are doing that. But the backstory on the Fretboard Summit is I love hanging out with guitar people for the most part, the cool guitar people, all of you watching this right now. I want to hang out with all of you. And guitar shows tend to be kind of, one of three things. They're either a handmade or whatever you want to call it, luthier guitar show where the
A
goal is to
lot of
like
card tables.
to sell stuff. You got music camps if you want to go that route, and then you've got like meet your rock star superhero fantasy camps. And I'm always like, can't we have a guitar gathering with some of that stuff, but also where you might have fun even if you don't want to buy a $10,000 guitar? And so that was sort of the genesis of the Fretboard Summit. We did this almost 10 years ago, 2015 and 2016 in California. And it was just a pain in the ass. It was amazing and beautiful, and all these amazing people showed up. But we tried to take over a wing of a hotel 2 years in a row, and it was extremely expensive, and building stages and soundproof rooms and trying to convince people to stay at this hotel versus the cheaper hotel down the street. I'm like, never again. But then some angels in Chicago reached out to me and wanted to partner with me on this crazy idea. And basically we now host it at the Old Town School of Folk Music, which is this perfect campus for such a thing. It's got dozens of classrooms and quiet rooms and 2 theaters that all year long are showing a lot of the artists that we feature in the Fretboard Journal. It's one of the biggest music schools in the country, and we've partnered on this thing. And so it's a place where you can meet luthiers. It's a place where luthiers can network with other luthiers and suppliers. So it's got a little bit of a NAMM vibe, I guess. You can also just come and hang out and watch people talk and go to some music workshops and hear some amazing concerts at night. I've got all sorts of quirky programming as well, which we'll get into. And then we do have the room for a guitar show. So we have like 55 luthiers and guitar makers showcasing their wares. So you can come at it from a bunch of different angles. If you just want to go guitar shopping, it's like $20 to get in, and you can have the experience you would have at Healdsburg or Woodstock or LeConner or any of these guitar shows. If you want to immerse yourself in the true nerd culture, which is what I specialize in, you can pay more and attend all these lectures and concerts and after parties. And I think the goal at the end of the day is just to like make a guitar show that's actually fun, where you do get to bond with people and you do get to like meet some of your heroes in a very curated, fun, relaxing way. It's there's no cues for autographs or anything. It's just like, hey, there's Tommy Emmanuel and he's jamming with this person, or there's Bill Frisell, he's over here, or there's Steve McCreary from Collings, or whoever you want to meet. Like, they're all there.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna find out about it too.
You are going to find out about it.
So who are these scoundrels?
Well, that's Michael Bashkin on the left, our fearless host of the Luthier on Luthier podcast, which comes out once a month. And then Michael Gurian, fixture of many a guitar show and dear friend. That was from last year.
I met Michael at the last Northwoods, and I gotta say, Michael Gurian, he is just absolutely a pleasure to be around. Like, super engaged with everybody that's around him, and isn't doing that whole hierarchy of luthery thing that seems to go around sometimes. But
he's got so much history, and he is just the coolest person in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that in his sort of new phase, new chapter, retirement, he's back to building at least a few instruments a year, which is kind of fun. I haven't seen him up close, but he's been going a lot. He's been going to Hawaii and hanging out with Steve Grimes a lot, and through that world, Paul Simon has, basically said that all of his hit songs were written on a Gurian. And so I know Michael got to meet Paul last year, and that's pretty magical.
Yeah, I saw there was a didn't he do like a 60 minutes or something about his guitars? And there
Yeah.
was a very humble assortment of guitars, but I did notice there was a Gurian in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of guilds and stuff, like you would imagine, I suppose.
Yeah. And there's our friend Isaac Jang holding Linda Manzer's Ukraine sunflower guitar for Ukraine. Basically, this facility is like two big buildings, and we kind of turn it into a fun house for guitar people. So there's not one big gymnasium where all the guitar makers display their wares, for better or worse. There's like all these rooms, so we can kind of have rooms
cool.
where people can crank up amps. We have rooms where you'll see 10 luthiers in this room and 10 in the other, and it's my instructions, which I guess I'll tell everybody on August 24th when this thing starts, is just like literally treat it as a fun house. Just start opening doors, just start going down hallways, because we've got all sorts of stuff, and we'll have signs and stuff, but there are a bunch of bigger brands and individual brands and just solo makers representing at this thing, and a lot of like cool hands-on display stuff. So
Cool.
yeah. What else? Benedetto was there last year. We've got the blue guitars there this year. I think they're going up to Gallops as well. So if anybody ever wanted to geek out and see those guitars in person, here's your chance. I can't even remember what I threw in this. Tim Frick. Yeah.
Luth Group favorite right here.
Of course. All the cool people, all the cool kids come, I hope. So this was cool. This was Collings. We have bigger brands like Collings and Martin and Yamaha participating in this. Collings made it made me cry, actually, because they've never done this for anything. They made 3 sets of matching pair guitars, one acoustic, one electric, with the same finish, kind of the same, accoutrement, whatever, sunburst on the case of this Julian Lage model. And they built those for the summit, and ended up selling those for gobs of money through Music Emporium. But that was really cool. I was like, why don't more luthiers who build acoustics and electrics do that? I've never really seen the whole matching pair thing. I'm sure it's been done. Don't yell at me, but I thought that was really sweet.
That's an attractive set there.
Yeah. Megan Wells, of course. We had a lot of beers consumed at the Fretboard Summit. We have, I think, technically 3 bars going, one in one building and 2 in the other, and a lot of coffee flowing from our friends at Acoustic Coffee. But again, like the goal is just to have fun, and we have courtyards and spaces where people can just kind of connect, which doesn't always happen at guitar shows. It's like NAMM. People love NAMM because they love hanging out with their friends. They don't really love, or they don't often say that they love the business and sales side of NAMM. All the new picks. So I'm trying to like bring some of the fun out.
Cool. Well, Megan's fun. I can attest to that.
Yeah. So we have workshops. This was Courtney Hartman last year teaching a flat picking workshop. So if anybody goes with your all access pass, we've got sessions on blues. We've got Jorma Kakkonen teaching something. We've got a Tommy Emmanuel live podcast. Jake Eddy's coming back to teach flat picking. He was at the last summit, and that was pretty darn awesome. I think he got signed to Yamaha guitars from his appearance at the last Fretboard Summit, because Yamaha is building these like high-end dreadnoughts now in California. So that was cool. And the Milk Carton kids were there last year teaching everybody who wanted to know how to harmonize, I think was their workshop. We try to take the headliners and actually put them to work and in interesting ways. I don't want to just rehash stuff that you can find anywhere else. So I've asked a lot of the bigger name people, like, what's something you've never taught and wanted to do? This year we've got Bill Frisell, who's a dear friend to the Fretboard Journal, and many Bill Frisell video was shot 5 feet behind me in that corner.
Yeah.
He's going to lead a guitar orchestra that anyone can join. And so it's a little nebulous, but Bill's into it. And everybody who sits in can walk home with the MP3 of the time they played with Bill Frisell.
That's great.
I don't know what he's doing. A bunch of people have reached out like, am I going to be good enough for this? And I'm like, Bill's assured me,
Hey,
all you need is a few chords and you can be a part of this thing. So
it's either going to be music or it's going to be found art, and either way is a win.
Exactly. As long as Bill is slightly louder than everyone else or a lot louder, we'll be okay.
Uh-oh, I've lost the
Oh,
ability
you
to
lost it? Okay, that was
Oh,
Courtney. Yeah. Okay, so this was this goofy thing that we did last year. I just posted like a 3-minute video on YouTube of this, but this was called the Nickel Wound Chef, which was basically an Iron Chef spoof with 2 very brave competitors building a parts caster in an hour. And so I gave, on the left is Duncan Price, who, if folks haven't heard of him, he goes by the name Disco Baby, DISKOBEBE on Instagram. And he makes these insanely cool fretless Sustainiac creations, and a bunch of great players in LA have started using his guitars. But I wanted him to be the upstart wild card, and then on the right is Creston Lee of Creston Guitars from Vermont. They both got StewMac offset guitar kits, like the ones that are basically you just screw it together, like $190 StewMac kits. And then I let him cheat. I just said, bring whatever you want from home. And we spoofed the Iron Chef. That's Joe Glazer as one of the judges in the corner there. This was very intense. Like, I don't think most people going to the Fretboard Summit understood what I was trying to do here or how serious this would get. But this was watching 2 people on a stage trying to build a guitar in 60 minutes in a competitive format. I felt really bad that this was my idea. Like, first off, the table was way too short for Creston, who's like over 6 feet tall.
Yes.
So he was hurting. Duncan actually finished a little ahead of time, but I think you'll see in one of the next pictures, like Megan Wells became a human clamp for Creston to use a router. Nope, the other way.
No.
Now we're back to the beginning.
Oh boy.
That's okay. This is the
malfunction.
problem with StewMac, or it's the problem with PowerPoint, not StewMac. They're all interchangeable. So yeah, this is Megan Wells being a human clamp. Well, I told them that they could cheat, and if they just made the StewMac kit the way it was made, that wouldn't be that interesting. And so Creston made his a baritone and put a third pickup on it with a blend knob, and then Duncan, I think you'll see in the next slide, made a.
Was anybody like doing a play-by-play?
Well, I was trying to, and Megan was trying to. That's why Megan was there. But what I realized, and why the video isn't an hour long, it's 3 minutes long, is there's a skill and an art to making a cooking show. And we were a bunch of guitar people trying to wing it. So we didn't really think about camera angles and blocking. But Megan was doing color commentary and interviewing these guys. And then the judges were Joe Glazer from Nashville, Josh Scott of JHS Pedals, and Adam Miller from Australia. And so those guys were kind of like the Muppets in the balcony heckling the competitors the whole time.
Oh, Lord.
And Joe went way, I told Joe, because I watch these cooking shows, and I think on the Iron Chef or Top Chef or one of these shows, they have like culinary curveballs where people like, now you have to use truffles. So I told Joe and the judges that they could do that. And Joe went to some grocery store at 2 a.m. the night before and bought like gummy worms and all this random crap, some of which is probably on this table, and was encouraging them to incorporate random food items into their bill. It was chaos, basically. But it was fun. It was fun. And and Creston's back eventually recovered, which is great. And the upshot is Josh Scott had so much fun at this thing that he was like, we should do this for pedals next year. And so this year we're doing the Germanium Chef, which is Robert Keeley against Heather Brown making a fuzz pedal in an hour, cheating allowed. Or I think Josh is providing them with ingredients. That'll be amazing because Josh is hilarious and a great host and is going to actually film it properly. But I don't know, making a guitar in an hour seems a lot harder than a fuzz pedal.
Yeah, I wonder, like, my wife watched a lot of that British Bake Off.
Yeah.
And you wonder, like, what the real story was. If you were just to drop a camera in the middle of that, it probably does look very not like a TV show.
Yeah,
Oh.
I think there are a lot of cuts and a lot of breaks, and that was the trophy that went out to the winner that one of our
nice.
readers made. It's got like guitar parts in it and an acrylic mold, and we have an equally cool trophy for the fuzz build off this year. What else did I put in here? Oh, this was our judging notes. So this was how it was scored, but then ultimately, spoiler alert, it was a tie, which is crazy. And so then Joe Glazer called George Gruen up to get him to appraise the two guitars when they were finished via Zoom. And that was more silliness. So these are the kind of things you don't see anywhere but the Fretboard Summit, for better or worse. But yeah.
He said, this one has gummy worms in it and is therefore.
He had no idea why Joe was calling him, and Joe was sending him pictures of two guitars without any finish on them. And he's like, these look like they might have been made from off-the-shelf parts. And Joe's like, yeah, I know, but just appraise them. Tell us what you think each of these is worth. And Duncan made, I think it's the next slide, Duncan made this insane, or no, that's, did I not include it? That's Ken Parker and Brian Gallup. Duncan made this insane guitar that had a second neck put on it with a reverb tank. So it was, it needed outboard power, but it was basically.
He did that in an hour?
Yeah. And ripped all the frets out and sealed. I mean, it was incredible. Duncan works fast. He's, anyway, so there was that guitar with an appendage that George at first didn't even see. And then there was a much more Fender Jaguar-ish looking thing, and George ended up skewing it to Creston with the more traditional guitar because I don't think
that's how George is.
I don't think he knew what to do with Duncan's incredible creation, and that guitar lives on if you follow Duncan on Instagram, because it's like the Winchester Mystery House. He keeps taking that Stu Mac body and routing new channels, and it still has a reverb tank, and it's like even wilder than it was back last year.
What's Duncan's Instagram handle?
Disco BB. I'll type it in the
chat. I know that. That guy's cool. I gotta get him on. I've been talking to Trevor about getting him on for an interview, and I haven't been able to do it yet.
You could do it at the summit. He'll be there. You
cool.
could just wrangle him. He's up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and works for a small guitar store. And I mean, it's just the definition of a mad scientist. Like, if you follow what he's doing,
I like his stuff.
And he's an incredible musician too.
Yeah. I like that guy's vibe. So here we got Brian and Ken Parker.
Yeah, so we had we had because a lot of the people who attend this thing, this is to cut to the chase, like the Fretboard Summit, we have probably 300, 400 people coming from around the world, like to buy the all access pass. And then we have more who just want to go guitar shopping, but I want to give them cool experiences. So Brian set up a little shaving station where, people could just shave a guitar for, like, most of our readers have never touched a file or a chisel or anything. And you could just kind of do a little, armchair voicing there. And so I don't know why Ken needed the practice, but Ken apparently did for this one pick.
Well, everybody likes a petting zoo,
yeah.
You want to touch the llama.
You do. And that is a friend, Steve Stusser, playing one of Dick Boak's guitars.
Okay.
Dick's making those, I forget what he calls that one. It's based off of a Martin from a long time ago. But that cool kind of teardroppy Weizenborn thing. Cool guitar.
So is it going to be possible for middle-aged men to attend this without a Hawaiian shirt, do you think? Or you think
We have
do you have any
a
spare
wide
Hawaiian
array of
shirts? Like if I show up
wardrobes.
and I don't have one, do you have one that I can
I
wear?
only see one Hawaiian shirt in this entire photo.
Okay.
I mean that honestly, if I'm being, some of the programming, the reason I'm doing things like the Iron Chef spoof and some of the hands-on stuff and having Josh Scott come is like, I want the audience to skew younger.
Yeah.
I want younger people to get excited about guitars and handmade instruments and lutherie. And so we do have a fair number of Hawaiian shirts, but we had a lot of just, t-shirts and
T-shirts.
people skewing closer to 25.
Yeah. So some V-neck T-shirts, you think? Like that kind
Some
of thing?
V-neck. We probably even had a Supreme shirt at the
Okay.
last Fretboard Summit. I bet there was one or two walking around. We can just do fashion do's and don'ts of the Fretboard
Okay.
Summit. That can be our next segment. On the
Sandals
Luth
with
Group.
socks and a Hawaiian shirt.
You
No.
get banned. You're banned, or you get a free guitar if you wear that. I can't remember. And
That's
that's our dick. Yeah, we'll end on that.
Is
But
he
that's
gonna
the
have-
summit.
Is he going to have a reading from his new book? I hear his new book is fantastic.
His new book, which we put out. I don't know if Dick's coming, actually. I need to touch base with him.
Mhm.
He's going into the Gallup thing, so hopefully he's making the trek down.
Yeah.
We'll make room for him. But yeah, a bunch of people, hire a bunch of larger scale people are coming. Bob Taylor and Andy Powers. Then we go down colleagues, Husson Dalton, Preston Thompson, and then a whole bunch, like 70, individual luthiers, whatever that means, are converging on this thing, along with a bunch of people who, I think just want to come and hang and have fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Should we do
I'm reading these
another
comments.
open questions just for the summit?
Hey, Jason.
Hey,
So I was at a wedding last year, so I couldn't go. So I have a series of 15 or 16 pictures of all the luthiers there giving me the finger.
oh,
So
perfect.
it's, Gurian, Joe Glazer, Linda Manzer, like kind of everybody just giving me the finger for not being there. So
Also,
that was enough,
Evan's,
so I have to go.
Evan's putting together a tight 20 minutes of luthier
No,
based stand-up.
no. Jason and I still need to discuss the comedy.
Yeah, so we have the full run of the space, which is really cool. And there's like 2 theaters, and usually the music kind of winds down around 11 o'clock at night. And I had the idea of open mic stand-up comedy, guitar jokes only,
Yeah.
like for the diehards, the people who want to hang out till midnight. And aside from Evan, though, it's been kind of hard to figure out even who would be. I know a lot of funny guitar makers, and I know a lot of funny people who read our magazine. I don't know how many are actually brave enough to go in front of a live audience and crack some jokes. But if anybody's got a good 5 minutes of guitar jokes, come out to this thing.
Ian and I could do a Costello and Costello thing.
Well, I think I just wait for you. I think my strongest joke so far is the back bow one. So
I
don't
like
know if
that.
that would
I might steal that.
tell me if this one would fly with consumers. Like so I told him anyway, I said, that's not back bow, that's fall away starting at the 3rd fret. Didn't you? No?
That'd be good. There's room for that.
Here,
Okay.
guys.
I mean, aside from the like really overdone guitar jokes, there's not. I think this is an opportunity for someone to really dive in. I mean, Mitch Hedberg had that great joke about vacuum stores and how they're different from guitar stores, which if anyone has never
I
listened
don't know
to
that
it,
one.
it's probably on YouTube. I know it's on Spotify, but
Okay, I'll check it out.
yeah, it's basically, I mean, I can't do Mitch Hedberg justice. The guy was a genius, but yeah, it's basically like you don't see a lot of guys at vacuum stores trying out vacuums.
No. I talked to a friend of mine about I worked in a place it was in the basement, and then upstairs was a restaurant. I became friends with the guy because I ate lunch there all the time. And I was like, what it'd be like? It'd be like if somebody went back into your kitchen and they're like, just started tasting things out of the pots, and they're like, oh, this is very good. I'll come back if I'm hungry. Like it's good food. You got great food here. Maybe if I'm hungry someday, I'll come back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we could do a thing where we like, like those really big popular musicals or rock shows where we confiscate everybody's cell phones for the duration of the
Yeah.
performance, where you can say whatever you want at the open mic and it won't come back to haunt your career, maybe.
Oh yeah, Jason. I actually have material that the only reason I wouldn't say it is because it might wind up online.
Okay.
Yeah.
Boy, do I have a guitar gathering for you, Evan.
Turns out Evan's got a lot of spicy meatballs stored away in there. So,
You can go to the Fretboard Summit website and see who's showing up in case your material is going to be about them. You can censor it ahead of time or craft it around who is there if you want.
It's 99% about you. No,
Oh,
it's
perfect.
it's customer stuff.
Yeah.
So, I would never want my customers to see it.
Yeah, no, we can do that.
Okay.
And by that point, everyone will have a good buzz, so no one will remember anything the night before, and it'll be great.
All right. Any other questions before I let Jason get back to his what I'm guessing is 100-point bullet list to-do list for today?
Some podcasts and video editing. It's today. Yeah. Question: Birkenstock competition. Yeah, that would be. I just saw the Barbie movie last night, so Birkenstocks do kind of play a role in that.
Todd, do you want to say something? You look like you're gearing to say something.
Oh no, it's just nice to see. I'm super stoked. I'm glad I get to go and hang out. So,
Todd, how is the shop setup going?
It's in progress.
Yeah.
So I'm in the spot where random boxes of random stuff, and my vacuum arrives today. So I'll be piping and all that stuff. So yeah, I'll probably be open middle of next month. So which is great.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Congrats.
Just in time to come down and have a week off hanging with you.
There you go.
So.
Cool.
All right. Hey everybody, can you unmute and say thank you to Jason for stopping by?
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks.
Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
I'm looking
And,
forward to it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks
Looking
for
at-
following me, and this group is great. I love it.
All right.
I had one quick question.
Yeah.
How are the ticket sales? Are there still going to be tickets available?
Yeah, I mean the all access one, honestly, they wanted to declare it sold out, and I'm sort of pushing for them to stretch that another week or so. There's a concern that all 400 and something people who've bought tickets are all going to want to see Tommy Emmanuel play, and that it'll be at capacity. And I have a feeling that a fair number of Fretboard Journal readers love Tommy Emmanuel and have seen him already and would rather do something else. And the reality is at all these shows, like a fair number of people who buy tickets, go eat at some restaurant that they heard about or whatever, and don't go to the shows. But yeah, it's close to sold out for the all access tickets, but Friday all access wide open if anybody can only make it for a day, and the Luthery show, which is Friday and Saturday, we're gonna even take tickets at the door. So yeah, it's looking good.
I fell for your Facebook post and immediately bought all access tickets for Friday.
That's good because that's what they, I had a little panic when Old Town's like, we're gonna call it sold out at 10 a.m. on whatever day that was, and I'm like, wait, why are we doing this? And basically told them that they could yell at me if everybody did indeed try to cram in to see that one Tommy Emmanuel performance. But it's cool that we got Tommy. I mean, I'm super grateful. But it's kind of a 3-ring circus, as Todd can attest, and folks who went last year, like there's stuff going on all over the place. And even if we had Eric Clapton there or something, I have a feeling a bunch of people would rather just be in the lobby, hanging out, drinking beers and connecting with their new friends. So that's how it goes.
Who wants COVID?
Yeah, just make sure there's no beer in where the music's being performed at, and then you'll have plenty of room.
There's a lot of beer sold at this place. There was even like a guitar themed beer, which I can't even remember what brewery it was, but we pulled out all the stops for the guitar nerds of greater Chicago and the world. So
awesome.
Yeah.
All right. You heard it here first. Or no, not at first, like second? No,
Fifth, I don't know.
fifth. Go to the Fretboard Summit. And Jason, thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored. Like I said, I love this group.
Awesome.